Hi everyone, I am Rebecca from ChemKnits, and today we are going to play with some Wilton Color Mist sprays to apply a light layer of rainbow color to some sock blanks. It has been almost exactly a year since I've played with these sprays, and in fact these are the exact sprays, the same exact bottles that I used during the original sock blank special. The gradient that I want to create today is a rainbow gradient, very similar to what I did in the sock blank special 2 during the spray painting live stream. But I want to sort of do this as a standalone video, mainly because I really want to do this dyeing project again. However, there's also a little bit of a twist that we're going to do, and this is why we have 2 sock blanks for our project today. In addition to the dyeing itself, one of the questions is, will these still work? Are they going to be gummed up? We won't know. I think this purple has been used in many projects, and so I do have a brand new one that I might need to open. But let's stop talking and go get pre-soaking. We are going to pre-soak these blanks in some water with, let's go ahead and do 4 tablespoons of white vinegar. I want these colors to be able to strike fast. And there's probably 6 to 8 cups of water here in this basin. These are Knit commercially wound sock blanks. They are double-stranded sock blanks. So there are 2 50-gram balls of yarn knit together, so that way whatever random design you create, you could then use this for a matching pair of socks or something, because you'll have 2 matched 50-gram balls of yarn when these are unraveled. But now I'm going to go ahead and let these blanks pre-soak for at least 20 minutes. The blanks have been pre-soaked and I laid them out on some plastic wrap on my counter. I did try to take some care to uncurl out these edges to make them as flat as possible. I also removed most of the water so that way they are not super wet and drippy. Because I don't want, when we roll them up to heat set it, I don't want to really be able to squish around the dye too much. And now for our twist. I am going to lay out some acrylic yarn in a pattern. I'm going to redo the pattern, I think, but I'm going to lay it out on a pattern on this blank. So when we spray, we should get some kind of resist. Now, I want to give a huge shout out to Emma for doing this technique and her mother for sharing it in the ChemKnits Lab Facebook group. I saw this post today and I had to run and try it right away. When Emma tried this technique with tulip spray dyes, she found that the stunning resist marks that she had achieved didn't stick around because the dyes spread out to cover the white patches. And I thought that if she had tried this maybe with acid dyes or food coloring or something that will strike to the fiber faster than tulip dyes do in my experience, maybe we'd be able to preserve some of these white patches. So I had to run out and try and see if it would work with the color mist sprays. Since we're doing a project that has just a really light application of dye, I do not think that this is going to create like an extreme difference when we use this fun string pattern versus when we don't use it on the other blank. However, I think that it is just a fun thing to try, and I think that as a blank it will have a little more visual interest than just the rainbow gradient. All right, let's do this. Let's start spray painting our yarn. And I'm going to start with the purple because, oh no, I didn't consider that part. There we go. I don't think there's yeah, I did not consider that part, that this might not work quite as well as I was hoping. The spraying, there we go, a little lighter hand. Now it's staying. I'm going to try to get these edges. Alright, it's going to take a little bit of practice. New bottle purple. Oh, that's so much easier. So much easier than the almost empty. Now granted, this one I open now, this is the first time I've opened it at all. So you can see I'm able to do a little bit of lighter. Oh no, we're blowing. A little bit of lighter coverage, but okay. It is somewhat working. I just have to practice a little bit. Okay, let's try the red on the other side. Oh, there we go. Okay, I think I'm getting like my hand down for this. Now I think if I go, nope, if I go too fast, it doesn't really stay. Oh, bummer. I think this is something where maybe using like a misto or something might work a little bit better. Because if you were using a misto, you would be, rather than having these sort of aerosolized cans, you would be using like actual, like a spray, like it would be the droplets more than the air. Maybe it's air, I don't know. I don't know. Let's see. You know, this one has a slightly different kind of nozzle. But all right, let's try. Yeah, things are moving around. Well, I still think it was a beautiful idea. Clearly need to play around with it a bit more. I might go back in and add some more color to this front one if we feel like it's a complete flop. Man, I'm a little bummed because this had such great potential. And that designer laid out was so cute. But you know what? Not everything works out, and this is a reason why I try things out for the first time on camera. So we can all learn from my successes and mistakes. And no matter what, the yarn that we're creating here is going to be stunning. So as far as an oops goes, this doesn't really count. Because I think it's just going to be very, very pretty overall. You know, this rainbow blank on its own, you know, might have looked so much cooler with some of these resist marks. I mean, I'm not even really trying to hold them down anymore because I'd already kind of messed it up. But we'll see. We'll see what it looks like when I remove them. I think I am going to need to make the purple section a little wider. And too bad this color won't stick on the acrylic. That would be really cool looking. Don't worry, I'll be going back over everything. Maybe the answer is that it just needed a lot more of the yarn on top. Because it stayed a little better over here in this purpley section. But let's try and remove this and see. I mean, this is not quite what my vision was. I really should have done this with just like a mini skein of wool yarn because that would be so pretty. This is gorgeous. This is cool. It kind of worked a little bit. I think that it just, you know, comes off a little too easily, unfortunately. All right, so the resist technique did not work as expected, but the spray bottles are. We have a shallow penetration of color. And when these get unraveled, there will be speckles. And it's going to be a beautiful rainbow of speckles. And it's because there's ultimately not very much liquid involved in here. And I'm just going through. The one thing I will say about this is that there is a lot of haze in here from using these sprays. But I am trying to bring some overlap into and paying attention to these edges. And that's the nice thing about these sprays, is that we can always sort of go back in. Yeah, so they take a little getting used to. They are really, really fun. I do wish that the sprays themselves were a little less expensive, because then I would be saying, like, you have to go get this, you have to play with it. But I think even though like this is easier and faster than say using a miso, the miso is like getting a couple of those bottles, you can refill them yourself. Whereas this you can't really refill. You'll just have to go buy more when they run out. So ultimately, I mean, that's all up to you. So what's cool here, it's even spraying over it. Some of that design stuck around. And that is cool. Now I'm gonna go and wipe all of the edges before we start wrapping this up to set the color. All right, let's go ahead and wrap these up. I am going to create one massive jelly roll here and just roll up these blanks. And you can see now how much less color there is on this bottom side. Go here. All right. I put the jelly roll on a microwave safe plate, and we are now going to go microwave this on high for a total of 6 minutes, but in 2-minute increments. And the reason why we're doing 2-minute increments is so that way you can check and make sure that it's not too hot before microwaving it some more. This way we don't risk scorching the fibers. One other thing to note is that while these sprays are expensive, I have so far done 4 different rainbowish blanks with the equivalent of 1 set. This purple was used in a few other projects, so it doesn't really count. So, I mean, the dye goes a really, really long way if that factors into your decision. And, I mean, granted, I haven't washed them yet, but the food coloring has lasted over a year with the bottles open. So that's another big plus. After 6 minutes, this is piping hot. We're gonna let things cool off slowly and wait until this is at room temperature for us to open it up. Let's wash our rainbow soft flakes. Now, normally I wash things later that same evening, but sometimes, like today, life takes hold and I don't end up unwrapping it until a couple of days later. So I originally dyed these on a Friday, and it is now Sunday. But look at these bright colors. And you can see that we're going to get speckles, because even though it's pretty solid on one side, the other side does not have very much color on it. Which means that when we unravel this and then re-knit with them, you will see some speckles and modeling of these tones, and it's going to be really, really beautiful. And all of this color is in these 2 blanks. I'm going to use a little bit of dish soap, just in case there's anything that'll help get out. Sometimes this will start some bleeding to happen, but better to know now than later. So yeah, now I'm going to go rinse out the soap and then hang up our blanks to dry. So our attempt to do a resist on top of a rainbow gradient, just using some acrylic worsted weight yarn and the color mist sprays, didn't work great. The color mist just had way too much force as this dye was coming out. And while you can see some hints of these really cool spirals I laid out over here, and a little bit at that red end, really, like, it just did not work as well as we would have hoped. Now, to be fair, once I saw it wasn't working well, I did go back over it. But yeah, this is something that I really would like to try again. And I think that if you are going to use a spray method that has maybe a less forceful application, I don't remember if the misto felt really forceful, but maybe just a spray bottle or a spray pen, then maybe the yarn won't blow away and you would be able to sort of have that resist mark left behind, which I think would be really, really pretty. So even though that didn't work out, we're still going to have an amazing speckled rainbow gradient yarn. You can already see a little bit just from this bottom how we've got these white speckles and purple speckles in that end. And that's because the application of the dye is really, really shallow. We have these bright, vibrant colors, but they don't penetrate all the way through. We had enough acid so that they were able to penetrate really shallowly onto these blanks. And that is the effect that results in this really, really cool speckled pattern. Could you dye a rainbow gradient on a blank that is less speckly, less mottled speckled? Absolutely. There's many other techniques that you could do where you would have, if not a complete even coverage, you could have more even coverage than what we got here today. However, I think that using a blank, and especially a double-stranded blank, one of the best benefits of it is that you can create these speckled gradients in a way that would be a lot harder to do if you were using other types of dyeing gradient techniques. Resist attempts aside, are these blanks identical? If I were to unravel both of them, would we have 4 identical 50-gram skeins of yarn? No. They're very similar, but they are not identical. I think that the widths of some of these color stripes could be different. The sections where we'll have some purple and blue sections in some rows, these angles where not perfectly straight are slightly different between the two blanks. Will these subtle resist patches that you see make a huge difference? No. I don't think that when it's unraveled and knit up, you would really be able to tell without the skeins being linked together which one was which. I went and unraveled one of the blanks, and like this, it almost looks like a clown's wig. The yarn is really crimped right outside the blank, so right after the video, I am going to go wet it so that way this crimp can relax a bit. But we can still get a sense of how this gradient will look. Looking down the blank, we have a rainbow gradient of colors, and these colors are in bright speckles on a white backdrop. And it's really just beautiful. Now with this speckled gradient, when we go knit this up, we're not going to see something that has a bright color on one side and a paler color on the reverse. You're going to see the speckling and mottling throughout what you knit up. And it's going to be unique and wonderful and absolutely beautiful. One other thing we learned today is that these color mist spray bottles have a lot more dye in them than I gave it credit for. The silver color mist really didn't have very much pigment in it at all back when I did that video. But so far with most of these colors, I have dyed 4 different types of rainbow gradients, and there's still more dye in there. So when you're thinking about the price point, if you're wanting to dye these kinds of blanks and you're interested in the sprays but worried about the cost, they do go further than you expect. And so that's a huge positive in my book. However, there do exist like the Misto, and I think Jacquard has a UCAN. There are other pressurized type sprayers that you can fill yourself, so you can mix your own colors and use, say, acid dyes or something instead of food coloring. I am Rebecca from ChemKnits, and I hope that you enjoyed this episode of Dyepot Weekly. If you are new to the ChemKnits Tutorials YouTube channel, you should subscribe. I love to try new types of ways to dye yarn, to apply color to yarn, and I frequently film things that I try for the first time. Sometimes things work out great. Other times I try things like the yarn resist that don't work quite as well. But I still share all of this with you, and I think that we all can learn a lot from it. There are at least 2 new yarn dyeing videos every week, and you really don't want to miss a thing. If, in addition to my approach, you love the yarn that I dye and would like to bring some home, I do have an Etsy store, ChemKnits Creations, and the shop is filled with hundreds of skeins of yarn that have been featured in past and upcoming videos here on the ChemKnits Tutorials YouTube channel. So not only can you go buy some pretty hand-dyed yarn, you can then go watch me dye it all over again as you are using it. Happy New Year, everybody, and thank you so much for watching. I look forward to all of the beautiful colors we can create in 2019.